I have a Prism.
The special Board of Aldermen meeting to order, 7 p.m. on April 30th, here in the Aldermanic Chamber. Prayer will be offered by Deputy City Clerk Judith Boylo, and Alderman-at-Large Ben Clemens will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Gidge. Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Present.
Alderman Dowd. Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Laws.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Karen. Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderwoman Malizzi-Gola.
Present.
Alderman Tenza. Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Clemens.
Here.
Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
11 present.
Thank you. And I did hear from Alderman Tenza, Alderman Lopez, and Alderman Dowd. They won't be here. Alderman Dowd may be here later. Okay, we are meeting tonight to have a discussion on assessing. I'm going to invite the Acting Administrative Services Director up and whoever she'd like to bring. And I'm going to turn it over to her. Thank you. And dismiss the clerk. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Oh, we wanted to stand it up. Yep. Thanks. Good evening. Thank you, President Wilshire, members of the Board of Aldermen, for having us here this evening. My name is Kim Kleiner. I am Acting Administrative Services Director and the Mayor's Chief of Staff. To my right, I have Louise Brown. She's the Administrative Specialist and the lead of our administrative team in assessing. And to my left is Greg Turgis, and he is our Assessor 3, also our Commercial Assessor within the department. Briefly, here is the current organizational chart. So as you will see, Louise leads 3 administrative staff members. There are 4 assessors within the department, all reporting to me. What I'd like to start with this evening is a little bit of an overview of the department, where we are, and what we're currently working on. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Louise to speak about some of the administrative duties.
Thank you, President Wilshire and members of the board, for allowing us to be here tonight. What I'd like to do is start by giving you a little bit of history on Greg and myself in the department and how long we've been there. I began working for the city of Nashua in July of 1998 as a motor vehicle clerk. I was recruited to the assessing department in 2000 as a deed specialist. When the exemption specialist position was eliminated, the personal exemptions and credits were assigned to my position. In 2006, I was promoted to the Assessing Administrative Supervisor position. My current duties include providing leadership, knowledge, and supervisory skills necessary to oversee the management and administrative functions of the assessing department. To also oversee and maintain a highly professional customer service support system, both at the counter and on the telephone. I work in collaboration with staff and other departments to problem solve, consider other departments' moving parts, and how it affects our organization as a whole. I've had the privilege to work for the city I was born and raised in. I appreciate the opportunity to assist every person I'm able to, whether they are coworkers, other municipalities, or members of the public. I also assist in teaching exemption and credit workshops for the NHMA, educating other municipalities and appraisal companies. Greg Turgis has been with the department since February of 1999, initially as a data collector. He became a residential assessor in December of 1999. After taking all of the necessary courses and having the required experience, he became a DRA certified property assessor and an NHAAO certified New Hampshire assessor. His duties included locating, identifying, and performing data analysis on residential properties, qualifying sales through field inspection and data analysis, processing residential abatements filed with the city, and presenting them to the Board of Assessors. He represents the city at the BTLA and Nashua Superior Court in abatement cases, assists taxpayers with any questions, comments, concerns they may have, and assists with projects throughout the department, including data collection and analysis for assessment updates. He was again promoted to commercial assessor in 2016. And due to the hard work, education, and lengthy experience he has gained, his status was elevated from DRA certified property assessor to DRA certified property assessor supervisor in 2018. This status allows Greg to exercise general supervision over revaluation projects, conduct sales surveys and establish base values for land and buildings, prepare sales surveys, establish charts to be used in revaluations, prepare reports, supervise informal reviews of property assessments with property owners, oversee any revaluation by assisting the municipality to ensure the revaluation is performed in accordance with state laws and rules, and assist the municipality to ensure that it's in compliance with the revaluation contract is adhered to. I've had the opportunity to work with Greg from 2000 to the present, and his growth in the department is something to aspire to. He has become one of the top individuals I have been able to depend on with the changes that have occurred in our department. So I'd like to just talk about what we do on the administrative side. So the administrative side, what we're doing from January until now is process exemption and credit applications. The deadline to notify taxpayers for us is July 1st. So the new and renewal for elderly and disabled, we have 472 applications that we need to process. Veterans credits under RSA 7228, 7228B, and 7235, 217 applications that we need to process. Blind exemptions, there are 6. Solar exemptions, there are 40. And we also process A9s for any parcels that are applying for a charitable, religious, or educational exemption. And that's 239 applications that we need to process. And that's something that's done annually. These files need to be prepared and presented to the Board of Assessors with staff recommendations. We also deal with property transfers and updating records. Transfers due to a deed being recorded at the Registry of Deeds. We review deeds, plans, and check them against GIS for accuracy and validity. We process notice to towns and cities from Superior Court, the probate department. We process name changes due to a marriage or divorce. And we process address changes with the tax billing coming up. We need to make sure that all that stuff is correct. Exemption and credit workshops. So assessing staff conducts workshops at various sites throughout the city, informing taxpayers about available exemptions and credits to reduce their property taxes. So we went to the Senior Center in January. We went to Jensen's in late January, and just a couple of weeks ago attended the Mayor's Senior Summit to give information there as well. We provide information regarding assistance available to any residents in the greater Nashua area. If we can help them, we will. What the administrative staff is working on right now, we are preparing for file capture. The tax bills are going out soon. So we are going through reports to verify all the information regarding exemptions and credits is accurate. We prepare for the Board of Assessor meetings. It's a bi-monthly process, so it's information that we have to gather ahead of time and mail to them and then go through it with them at the meeting. We're going through data entry and QC. We review and process plans and caveats that have been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And right now is a busy time because of the April 1st date. It's as of April 1st of the tax year, so we have to make sure this stuff is done before the July bill. We also respond to emails from the website. I will turn this over now to Greg.
Thank you, Louise. Again, I'm Greg Turgis. I am a commercial assessor with the city of Nashua. I'd like to start off with a couple of the memberships that we are currently have and some certifications. We are members of the NHAAO, New Hampshire Association of Assessing Officials, the NHMA, which is New Hampshire Municipal Association, and the IAAO, International Association of Assessing Officials. Some of the certifications that people hold in the office is the New Hampshire Certified General Appraiser, Certified New Hampshire Assessor, Certified Property Assessor Supervisor, Certified Property Assessor, and a Certified Property Assessor Assistant. What are we working on right now? Well, as Louise mentioned, right now is a very busy time with the April 1st tax date and July bills going out and file capture. Preparing for file capture to ensure that the July tax bill will be mailed out on time, have the most current data, and be as accurate as possible. Physical inspections to capture value due to new construction with the use of the standardized new construction form, which would be this blue form that you got in your handouts. If a property is not completely built, the other form, the construction completion report, will work with that for the percent complete of the property. We also verify all physical data and create the new property record card. The building permits are printed weekly from the building department's CityView software system. Physical inspections are attempted due to missed that one. Are attempted due to the insurance issuance of building permits, demo permits, etc. The assessor will verify the data of the property being inspected using the existing property record card, acting as a checklist to verify the data. And you all received one of these too. This is actually the property record card for City Hall. All right. When we conduct the inspection and the homeowner is not present, a door tag, which was this one that we gave you, is left on the property with the reason why we're out there and a request for a callback inspection. In some cases, work is done without a building permit or it doesn't require a building permit, but may affect the assessed value. These items may be picked up at a later date due to a building permit being issued for another reason, MLS review due to the property being listed for sale, or during a full measuring list, which we've been asked for and has been talked about greatly. Until a complete inspection is done, including interior and exterior, the city may not be able to determine the full impact of any permitted or non-permitted work. One of the other things we do is inspections of city-owned property that is being leased out. For example, Court Street, the Liquid Therapy Brewery is in there. They are required to pay taxes on the portion of the building they're occupying. So we have to go out, put a value on that for them to pay the taxes on it. Bless you. We also do the inspections for the owned, used, and occupied status of any new organization applying for a charitable, religious, or educational exemption, and also do inspections for organizations renewing their exemption status. So one of the requirements for the exemption is the property has to be owned, used, and occupied by the organization. Okay, the department makes a good faith effort to get the value of the property as of April 1st and have that be reflected on their July tax bill. This will prevent the taxpayer from having to pay the total taxes due for the year on his or her December tax bill. So basically what we try to do is if you build a new house or put a addition on your house, we try to go out and make a good faith effort to get there so it is divided between the two tax bills. You build a $500,000 house, you would prefer to have two tax bills and not it all on the final tax bill. The tax office has notified us that the file capture date was actually today. So it was a little bit busy in the office today. That's for our department. It still has to go through the process and review and so forth from there. We review sales that have occurred from October 1st through September 30th to determine if the sale is qualified or unqualified. This is very important because only qualified sales are used in analysis. Qualified sale is basically a arm's length transaction between a willing buyer and a willing seller. We are also constantly analyzing data. We know that market continued to climb during and even after the 2018 statistical update. We're looking at sales to prepare for the ratio study, determine if a specific type of property is climbing or more rapidly than others. If there are data corrections that need to be made, or if in fact the sale is just an outlier. Okay, the abatement process. Filing abatement begins after the December bills are mailed. The deadline to file for an abatement is March 1st, following the final notice of tax, which is your December tax bill. Abatements are processed generally in the order they are submitted to our office. An exception to that would be if 3 or 4 people in the same condo complex or something applied. We would process those together. It's just more efficient. While comps from the taxpayer are considered, assessors perform an analysis to determine what the market value is on the property as of April 1st of that tax year. Communication is ongoing when the assessor is reviewing the abatement submitted. This would include scheduling an inspection of the subject property, reviewing the data, performing a sales analysis, letting the taxpayer know staff's findings, and letting he or she know what the recommendation will be and when it will be presented to the Board of Assessors. The Board of Assessors have the final say as to grant or deny all abatements. Once we have determined the market value and we have received the equalization ratio from the Department of Revenue Administration, that number is used to equalize the market value. And I hand it back over to Kim.
So why did we tell you all that? I think it's very important that we give you an accurate view of what is happening downstairs every day. It is extremely busy. You have a group of people that are working extremely hard to get information and applications processed and reviewed. And while we know that it is important to create sustainable change and to handle the items that were identified in the management plan, we also know that we have to complete the statutory requirements by the department. Here is an assessing improvement plan timeline that was actually created somewhat after the management audit was prepared. This is very high level. Some of these things we have already completed to date, and some of these are still a work in process. Some items, such as in software upgrades, and the updating of Assess Pro, you'll see lie way out. August of 2019 and August of 2020. And we'll explain more later as we go on. These dates have been very strategically chosen. So I'd like to walk through the conclusions, and this may look familiar to you. This is right out of the management audit plan. And I thought it would be easier if we take the major recommendations and we kind of walk through where we are on each one, if that's acceptable to the board. The first was to reestablish the Administrative Services Director. Legislation was submitted by Mayor Donchis, as you all know, and approved by the Board of Aldermen on 4/19 as amended by the board. Funding is in the proposed fiscal 2020 budget. The second was the elimination of the chief assessor position. And at that point, the mayor felt it was important that the administrative services director will direct the operations of the assessing department, working with the chief financial officer, and that right away something needed to happen. We needed to not wait. We needed to start observing the current operating state and creating and implementing an efficiency improvement plan. And I think we did that. It's right after, the day after the management audit review was presented to you folks, John Griffin and myself were in assessing. There was no hesitation, and we had clear direction by the mayor. So once the chief assessor position was eliminated, funding was removed from the proposed fiscal 2020 budget. Department 132, and $55,000 was added for what we saw as a need for consulting services moving forward. We began evaluating current operations, instituted weekly staff meetings, a weekly update on metrics, reviews with assessors on abatements, and creation of a mind map. So a mind map is something that I have used in my prior business when I have done management audits before and started to implement improvement plans. It's really nothing more than a visual tool. It helps you structure the information and better analyze, comprehend, and recall and generate new ideas. So this is the assessing improvement mind map that we created. If you look, there's really some main areas that were addressed in the management audit that we knew we need to make some changes. One of them being internal policies, which you've heard a lot about. That process has started. It does include us reaching out to other municipalities and other experts in gaining best practices and best policies. This book here is a book of policies that have already existed in some form down in the assessing department. It was important that we went through these and reviewed these first to see where they were before we started doing a gap analysis and realizing what policies may be lacking. We then reached out, and thankful to KRT, we have received standards on mass appraisal, best practices, understanding your property taxes. This is on many other municipalities' sites. It has some good information in it. We're looking at that. We're looking at information from the IAAO. There's a wealth of information out there. There's a wealth of different experts out there. And this is a process that's going to be ongoing through most of the summer. This is not something I would recommend you do in haste. And you really need to reach out to professionals and experts, which I will say, I am not an expert in assessing and never said that I thought I would be. So that is why we reach out to the experts. And some of our staff is certainly some of that knowledge. So I'm going to ask, Louise is responsible for updating our metrics that we have put in place.
So this is a sample of tracking the work that's being done in our department. This is a small list, and the items include admin staff and assessors assisting taxpayers at the counter. So this past week was 48, but when we have exemption and credit season, that number is well over 100 with the people coming in. Preparing for file capture, as we mentioned before. Building permit pickups and data entry for assessors. We're trying to get as much done as we can to prepare for file capture. So data entry this past week was 159. Building permits closed by assessors, 52. Closed by admin staff was 174. Print and sort and distribute building permits for prior month is 255. Review under construction is 55. And as you see at the bottom there, review and process abatements, that's the current status of the abatements as of the 5/2/19 meeting, the next board meeting. So we have pending 299, approved 60, and denied 20. So once this time frame with the file capture is over, the assessors will move right back into processing abatements.
So I think there's been a lot of discussion about a form that we have instituted within the department. And that form, part of the process is to be able to collect data. So in order for me to understand how our staff is currently being divided out and what their workload currently is, we are reviewing metrics like that. Where do we need more? Where do we not? Where are our peaks and our lows in our workload? That is important. I think I was asked yesterday if I am restricting information to the public. And I want to be very clear. I'm not restricting any information to the public. But we have had a large number of requests, more than the staff has ever seen in 20 years of the assessing department. It makes it difficult for staff to work on some of those statutory requirements of meeting the abatements and all the elderly exemptions and credits that the residents of Nashua deserve to be processed. So what we've asked is if there is a large amount of data that you require, that you simply write down the addresses on a form. And we made it easier than that. There's a form on the website. You can fill it out there and email it into the department. And the department will get back to you as soon as the information is ready. They will definitely get back to you within 5 business days to let you know that it is available for pickup and how much the copies will cost. And we are using and tracking that information. The third item for the in the management audit report talked about Assess Pro software. And we know that there was some items that needed to be addressed between the old admin system and the current Assess Pro. So we met with Assess Pro with Patriot on March 19th. The entire assessing staff, IT, Mr. Griffin and myself. And we figured out there is a way to process the abatements and the applications within our current version of Assess Pro. Now, there's strengths in why you would do that before you would upgrade a version. It'll be easier for us to handle the switch over of abatements and things from our current version of Assess Pro to our current version of Assess Pro from admins. We'll be able to validate that information easily on a system that our staff already knows. So we're looking and planning for August of 2019 to start that process. Why August versus now? I think the staff just let you know of all the things that we're doing. It just doesn't make sense to do it now. We also know that we'd like to update to the newest version of Assess Pro. There are some really strong attributes to the new version that we don't currently have. Multi-tax year database, which allows us to work in multi-tax years. We don't have that availability now. Increased functionality, a new operating system, improved integration with Munis, which is used down in our treasury and tax, and an even improved process for processing abatements. We hope to also have more internal licenses for other departments so that we can share our live data with other departments within the city. So what does that look like? Well, the initial cost to probably upgrade the software is somewhere around $35,000. And annually, it'll cost us about $17,700 in annual fees and maintenance. So in number 4 was to create and update internal policies and procedures to reflect the current state of operations. We've held a number of meetings. So on March 15th, CFO Griffin and I had the pleasure of meeting with Chuck Reese, who has been our monitor from the state DRA. We let him know about the operations of the assessing department, how we intended to move forward. We tried to answer as many questions as we could. And we tried to obtain some knowledge from him on where he felt maybe we should look at some improvements within the department. Again, he's one of the experts that you reach out to. And we talked a lot about state guidelines and monitoring going forward. Within the department, we talked about a policy that had been in place. There hadn't been a dollar amount on it. It had been left up to the assessors on sending a letter to a property owner when a change had been made that reflected in an increase in value to their property. This came up in a staff meeting and we talked about it. We did set a dollar amount. So if there's an increased assessment over $20,000, a letter will now be sent to that property. So that is one policy that was clarified more than changed. March 19th, we had a meeting with Rob Tozier from KRT and the residential resource and a discussion on consulting took place. So if any of you saw, there is a residential resource that has been posted to our website. That resource was created by KRT. It has a wealth of information within it that is designed to help the general property owner understand their property card, understand their assessment, We thought it was a good start. KRT had done that for some other towns and cities. So we were very grateful that they stepped right up and completed Nashua Zone. On April 3rd, Mayor Donchis, CFO Griffin, and I met with Commissioner Stepp, Attorney Raith, and Charles Reese regarding the plans moving forward. We had some discussion about the equalization ratio, conformance with state rules and laws, and I believe that Mayor Donchis had updated the board after that meeting to let you know that we had been told that Nashua was in full compliance. Also in April, an item that had been brought to us during the management audit was there seemed to be some confusion between the title appraiser and the title assessor. So to be clear, on some of our city job descriptions, the title had been assessor/appraiser. That was the title always on the job descriptions from as far back as I can see. It was not meant to say what their certification was. It was strictly their job title. So if you look on my business card, it says Chief of Staff. Why? Because it's clearly my job description. It's my job title that's on my PDF. That's it. But we understood, and we went and we removed the word appraiser on the business cards and left the word assessor, which is their certification. Although we do have one certified appraiser in the office. And we reprinted all of the business cards. Also, this past month, we reviewed all of the job descriptions. So we took them all, we edited them to a new city format. This is something that we started within City Hall well over a year ago. So some of our jobs within City Hall have already been updated to a new format. We thought it was important to go through all of assessings and bring them up to date. They have all been completed and forwarded to Human Resources and the union for review. There has been a lot of conversation about a new mileage reimbursement policy. Mayor Donchis created a policy committee, and we are currently reviewing all city policies. And the first one that we looked at because of the management audit was this new mileage reimbursement. That has been written, and it has been approved by the mayor. There is a process where it has now been sent to the union for review. But until that mileage reimbursement log is approved and set into full motion, we are asking our assessors to continue the use of their weekly field data collection logs, and you can see a description here. This is just an example of one. We are reviewing this data prior to any mileage reimbursement. And you can see here, it's clearly listing the property address, the date, the time of arrival, the reason for being there, and who was there. And we feel that at this time, this is very similar to what the new mileage reimbursement form will have for data, and this is sufficient. So the next item in the management audit was internal training programs for assessing and administrative staff, to conduct orientation and informal workshops with the Board of Assessors. So we have gone through, and this is an example of an individual's training within the assessor's department. We have completed this for every single employee within the department, and we are now looking at gaps and things that we feel need to be addressed overall and individually. So this is just an example of one. We know there are some upcoming trainings. I myself will be taking a training mid-May. Mike Mandel, one of our assessing officers, will be continuing on in his course of studies and taking a level 300 course. We are currently looking at how to provide the general public with an assessing 101. And we've spoken with KRT, and we would join with KRT and some of our internal staff to have a public meeting, hopefully held more towards the end of May, where people can come in and ask questions, and we can give an overall on people's property cards, what the information means, things of that sort. We are also looking at having an orientation for our Board of Assessors. So as you know, there has been a new member appointed to the Board of Assessors to come up for an interview May 6th. After that person is hopefully seated upon the board, we'd like to have a review of the use PAP report by KRT, which is the lovely manual down on the floor. And I think we can probably get that done in an hour with the Board of Assessors. Talk about best board practices, some of which we've identified. We've seen some, we actually pulled some old documents that existed on board practices back in the day. We'd like to have the board work on that, talk about how they see moving forward, what improvements they'd like to make. And then we'd like to have some presentations by staff, because not all of the members of the board, both current and of course being appointed, know exactly what the staff do. So we think that will be important. I spoke a little bit about reduce the reliance on the city's legacy admin software. Again, that's in August of 2019. It coordinates with IT and with Patriot. It's important to note that from January to April, we are taking in and processing credits and exemption applications. From mid-November, we are taking in and processing abatements. So it really fits if we look at this August timeline. It's when you start to see a little bit of a low in the workload, which will provide our staff with enough time to really look at the move over from one software to another and analyze the data. And the big one is always invest in a full measure and list over the next few years to update the property record data. We know that we need to complete this in time for the next state mandated reevaluation. So in July, we are planning a meeting with finance, assessing, and the mayor's office. We're looking at a bid process to submit a bond resolution to the Board of Aldermen. We know that estimated cost is about $1.3 million, and the time period is about 3 years. One question that we've been asked recently is, would we consider having an outside agency or contractor do an in-depth audit of the physical data? We did talk about this when the mayor and CFO Griffin and I were at the state. Because they do a monitoring, and every 5 years they do a little bit more strict than they do every year with a little bit larger sample. We feel that once the full measure and list begins, if we know we need to have boots on the ground this fall, we would like to maybe look at taking that first month of data and using that as our sample size. Take a couple months of data and use that as the sample size. You're going to have a larger sample size, most likely, than the state would do. And a larger sample size than you might contract with an outside contractor to do, and you're paying for it anyways. So you're paying for this data to be collected. Why not view it for a couple different reasons? Some just additional improvements that we've noted along the way. IT has been working with us, and they have been very helpful. We realized that when people, residents are searching for sales data for their properties, which most likely they do when they're filing their abatement application, that tool probably wasn't the easiest to use. The instructions were in one document and the tool was actually in another. And if you're great at toggling back and forth, maybe you could handle it. Um, so IT went through and put those instructions in each step of the tool. So now you can clearly see as you're searching through what each step of the tool needs you to put in order to get back. We also have met with CDM Smith. We're planning a very collaborative project of linking PDFs of individual property cards to GIS. So right now, when you go out there and you click on GIS on your property, you'll get a little assessment, brings up WebPro. We realize that WebPro isn't the data that our assessors are looking at. It is more of a shell of that data. So, working with IT, we have found that there is this Archive Pro that's available from Patriot that allows for PDFs of the property cards to be created. We're going to work on purchasing that software. IT will work with creating the PDFs, and then we're going to work on linking them to the GIS so that is a PDF. Now, it's going to be a snapshot in time, and what we're hoping is once in April and once in December. It's not going to be, if there's been changes in June, you're not going to see that until the December. But at least it's a step from where we are now. There is a cost to that software. It's about $2,500. And if we do have an additional purchase in December, if we want to do it twice a year, to create another database would be an additional $500. So you're looking at about $3,000. Recently, as of actually yesterday, but we were giving ourselves a little time, that file is very large. We received the USPAP report acceptance letter from the DRA and the full USPAP report from KRT yesterday. And we were able to get it uploaded to the website by the end of business yesterday. So we felt that that was very important. So another project that we've looked at and we've met probably 3 or 4 times now as a group is redesigning the assessing office. I have to admit, prior to the management audit, I had not been in assessing. Now I've spent an awful lot of time, and I think that the staff works incredibly well in a space that is clearly not designed the best especially for customer service. So quite often you will find this resident counter here has several different computers on it, which is for residents to access information. But if you have several residents that are also filling out applications at the time, it's really not sufficient. And if they have questions about information that they are meeting staff, quite often you might find that they go out into the hallway and talk at a table out in the hallway to get some privacy. So we're really looking at how we redevelop the area, what the general flow of the workload is. So you generally will have more employees that may need to access the vault where the property record cards and things are kept than others. So is it really the staff that's all the way over to the left-hand side of the office, or is it the staff that's closest on the right-hand side? You see the double door entrances. I think we have at least initially talked about, wouldn't it may be more friendly to our customers, to our residents, to use those double doors for access into the department than to actually have them end up in an assessor's office, and really they're not used. So this is an area we're looking at. There's a conference room table in the former chief assessor's office. You'll find a set of plans down there that building has drawn up for us, and we're really looking at just our initial conversations on what are the needs of the individual employees, what do they see as their needs, and then we'll start to talk about a more strategic plan moving forward. And we certainly thank Risk and Building for their help with this. So where we are. March 7th, the management audit report was presented to you. It's been 38 working days since the audit was presented. 14 working days with an acting administrative director. 14 days. We have received 43 emails, held 2-hour meetings with residents, 7 full staff meetings, 8 individual meetings, and 4 Board of Assessor meetings. We continue to have multiple requests for large amounts of data, property files, and documents. And you certainly saw the load that the staff has upon their plate when they spoke earlier. I think one of our goals moving forward is to create some real sustainable culture change. But there's a way and there's a process to do this. And these are not something that, oh, bless you. That's, this isn't something that I created. This is something that we used actually when we developed plans in my prior organization. In order to have sustainable culture change, you really have to communicate a clear reason why the change is necessary. Otherwise, you're not going to get the employees who rely on you to buy into it. You need to start small, and you need to scale. You can't just run out in haste and start making changes. It will not work. You need to design for the short-term goals and also your long-term goals. Everyone wants to see immediate results. We get that. We think we've made some improvements already. but we're asking for your time. We need to use positive reinforcement, and that means publicly as well. So I'm down there every day with a staff that works incredibly hard, that wants to create change. But we need to show the support in order to do that. And we need to realign some performance management systems. We need to look at management, and I think we've kind of indicated this when we spoke about the management audit, not just of assessing, but really look at some management of other departments within city government as well. Sustaining change is not achieved through a one-time exercise, but instead through the adoption of new management practices that need to be continuously nurtured and reinforced. Creating sustainable culture change provides the foundation for organizations to improve, transform, and compete. And I can say this, after 14 days as acting and 38 days since the management audit, I have no doubt that our current assessing department will rise to the challenge. Happy to take any questions.
I'm asking you, but. Great presentation. Thank you so much. And I agree, the people down there are working hard. Everyone wants to do a good job for the residents. And, I applaud you and the staff down there for stepping up and wanting to do better and making changes that are going to be positive for them and for the city. And I also neglected to mention that the mayor did call me and say he couldn't be here. He was at a Holocaust memorial this evening at Riv. So Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Thank you for all three of you for coming this evening and kind of giving us an idea of what you've been working on the last few months and what, your kind of day-to-day. I think it shows that you have a very busy office, you have a lot to do. And I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to come here. It was never a question in my mind as far as the, first of all, the amount of work that you do, and secondly, the quality of work that you do. I think it's always been good, and this just shows that backs up what Ms. Kleiner said, which is, your team can weather this storm and get through this, make this an even better office really than it already is. And I really want to say that I in all of my time in city government, I don't think I've ever seen a point when one area of city government has been so many resources and so much time has been put towards it. And I think, for anyone to say that somehow we're not doing enough in this area after tonight, I guess they just don't see it. They just don't see what's in front of them. Because to me, what this proves to me is that, there was a problem and we've addressed it. And we're going to continue to address it until it is completely solved. And so I don't need any more evidence. I don't. Just keep up the good work.
Thank you.
For the record, Alderman Dowd has joined us at 8 o'clock. Alderwoman Melissa Goya.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for coming this evening and for your presentation. And I'm not going to repeat Alderman Clemens' comments, but I would agree with them. And I think all of us know how hard you work down there. And we also know that there's just a lot of paperwork and you're under the gun to make sure your numbers are correct, and it's very detail oriented and requires much of your focus and time, and that you're committed to making sure it's being done correctly. I also think that having this presentation this evening and having you here to maybe make what you do and what's gone on in those 38 days more public goes a long way to letting the residents of the city understand where you're going and what you're looking forward to doing. And I think what's happened in the past several months has certainly made all of us a bit uncomfortable and wondered what's going on. But I think sometimes when those things happen, and I'm saying this as someone who worked for a school district that was under a federal audit for many years, when those things happen, it makes you kind of stop and say, well, we've been doing business as usual, and we've always done what we thought was the best, but maybe it's time to take a step back and say, wow, are there things we could do differently? Not because what we're doing is necessarily bad or incorrect or wrong, but it will just make what we do a better quality product. And to Ms. Kleiner's point, just more understandable to the public, because I think my frustration, and not recently, but the things I've heard from people in terms of their frustrations has been, I can't understand this, and I feel like a fool that I can't understand my own assessment data. So I think anything we can do to just make the public feel more comfortable in accessing their own data and understanding it also goes a long way towards people feeling like we're just all working together. So thank you again, and thanks for all your efforts, and not only currently, but in going forward to look at where things can be modified and adjusted to improve the quality of your hard work and what your product is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you. And again, I'm going to just say ditto and ditto. It's true. Coming forward in transparency is something that's truly important for the residents. I came, knowing what I knew and having a million questions. And thank you, because you really answered basically all of them. The only question I have, and I feel guilty even asking a question, but on this sheet here, when you use that as a checklist, does that then equate out to kind of a grade, or does that help you to create the assessment in general?
In general, correct.
Yeah. So like, for instance, if I saw the roof structure was a gable and the exterior walls were like wood shingle or vinyl siding or something like that,
Yep.
each of those would equate out to how you would do the assessment and so on. So this checklist, if you were a new person or a very seasoned person, you're going to come in basically within, I know some things are subjective, but you're going to come in with a close assessment to each other. And I think that's wonderful. And thank you for sharing this, because I think this helps us go a long way. And the only other question I have was a concern that's been brought up over and over again is the permitting process. I know you can't force your way into somebody's home, and I know not all permits, even if they said it was a $2,500 or $25,000, will be a $25,000. It could actually be maybe a $50,000 increase in the assessment. But is there any way that you, in doing your job, and the people giving the permit, know that the information that's on there is accurate without going out there? If it's an outside thing, I know we can look at GIS, but
Right.
yeah.
What we do is, if we do not gain access to the home, is we refer to the building department, get what we can for plans, review the inspections that they have done, speak with them, see if they can give us any information on it. And unless we get in, that's
And
about best we can do.
I appreciate it. But so thank you. You really did answer all my questions, and I appreciate everything that you guys are doing and the rest of the staff that's not here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Karen.
Yes, thank you. I too would like to echo, thank you for coming. I know this was a lot of work for you to put together. A couple of things, I think it's great, Ms. Kleiner, that you're working with the staff who have been there a long time to get their input, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, and that you're taking baby steps and not jumping into a hole that you might not be able to get out of. And finally, the one thing I think is great, you're redesigning that entrance area. How many times did I walk people down there and never know what was happening and where you could put people while they were waiting? So I think that's really great, and keep up the good work. Don't let the negativity affect you, because you all do a great job. I know, because I've worked with Louise in the past on different things. So I think you're coming a long way, and hopefully you'll give us an update in 6 months or something like that. And that way we have some transparency and that you're moving forward. But I was very pleased with your presentation. Please do not use that blue paper ever again. I was going blind. Thank you.
Alderman Teddy.
So, at the risk of being the lone dissonant voice here, I do think you're off in the right, you're heading in the right direction. But, I don't know any of you personally, so this is nothing personal, but I represent a ward and people who have concerns. I think you understand that it's so important that our taxpayers feel that they are being treated fairly in comparison to everybody else in town, that they're not being discriminated against one way or the other, or that someone is getting a deal that they're not getting. So we have to be very transparent in this whole process, and we have to make sure that whatever questions people have, that they're answered. And so, a lot of, I guess allegations is the safest way to put it at this point, have been made about mistakes that have been made in the assessing department. And, and my constituents have pointed out some were made by KRT. But egregious errors that, hopefully are being corrected. But, whatever the situation is, it's not something that happened yesterday. It's happened over a period of time. And I think, elimination of the chief assessor's position is not going to by itself cure any of these problems that you have there. And meaning, no disrespect, but you people have been working there while all of this happened. So my concern, I think that you're heading in the right direction. My concern is that that you, Ms. Kleiner, have your own admission. You're not an assessing. You have no background in assessing. You don't. You're walking into this thing new. You're adding some management. But I'm concerned. We had a chief assessor, and these problems occurred, and now we have no chief assessor. So we have nobody supervising the assessors except a non-assessor, someone who's not doing your best, but you're not familiar with the skill or art or science of assessing. And I'm wondering, whether or not, you feel with all the other duties you're going to have as administrative services director, whether or not we're not asking too much of you, whether or not there should be someone with an assessing background that should be there to supervise the assessing department. Um, And, um, and I hope as you go on, if you discover that that's the case, that that we can depend on your being forthright enough to say, yeah, we need some help here. We need some expertise that we don't have right now and that we should add.
Did you want to respond to that, Ms. Kleiner?
I would.
Okay.
And thank you. I mean, I truly understand your concern. Here's where I would like to disagree just respectfully a little. You had a knowledgeable assessor. What lacked within the department was some clear management. That was shown clearly in the management audit.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What was clearly shown in the management audit was you had a certified assessing specialist, right? You had an expert. What you didn't have was clear management. And we got in a situation. What makes a good manager is someone who realizes where to go to get the information they need to make decisions. So I come from the wire and cable business. I could not make a piece of wire if my life depended on it. Couldn't tell you what went into it. But I participated in managing the efficiency of production lines. Why? Because I knew enough and learned from great mentors. Let me put it that way. I've had excellent mentors along my way. How to make solid decisions and reach out for the best information to make those decisions. And I truly believe that that is what you need here. Am I going to be on the phone to different assessors, to different municipalities, to KRT? Yes, I think you can ask probably Mr. Tozier. Not saying that's not going to happen. They're the experts. There is a wealth of information out there. You have to be able to find it. We have a state DRA that leads the state in this process. I'm going to jump in and take the classes myself and see where this comes up with. I understand some of the concern about adding some other departments and divisions onto what's currently. I actually have more of a background in those other departments and divisions than I do this one, which I think will help a great deal. But I can promise you that if I ever feel that my effectiveness or that I am hurting the city or the value to our residents in any way, I will let you know. I will let the mayor know immediately.
Alderman O'Brien, and then, sorry. I'm going to call on Alderman
I will proceed, yes.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to all three of you for coming here today and really giving us a breakdown of the department. I'm one of those that haven't always thought the best of the department, but I know that it's in good hands right now. I appreciate the fact that you worked with that, gave us the audit, and you did tell us about it, the whole 9 yards, told us where we felt that we needed the help in the department, and also told us where you're going to go with this help, how we're going to get to where you want to be with this. So for me, I am very happy about tonight, and I appreciate all that you and your team is doing to make Nashua great. And more so, I can't wait for 101. I'm gonna be there.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Like everybody else, thank you for coming. But I, for one, always love it when a new sheriff comes to town, because that means you recognize something's happened and you need to fix it. And in this case, I think the first way to fix something is to identify you had a problem, and it seems like we have. And that's going to go a long way to give us a better service, particularly in all departments, but with the assessing. And I myself am willing to give you that time and would like to hear back, maybe at a later date, to come back and give us a report of the progress. And I think that's what the people would like to see. I undoubtedly think that we are correct. We're on the right track now, since we have identified what could have been a potential problem and we're looking to fix it. The other thing I'm extremely excited about is that in your presentation, you mentioned the software and the computers. I would like to make a public statement. I am not a geek, okay? But I do understand how much computers make allegedly our lives easier. But when you get into your end of it, I'm sure probably a large percentage of your work is data entering and working. I know this city has been under the gun for 25 years with something else, and a lot of infrastructure has fallen off the wayside. We look at pipes and different other things in schools, and we're looking at potholes and roads and paving programs and everything else like that. But the computer system is equally, in my opinion, equal part of that infrastructure. And I'm so glad that you have addressed that. You're bringing up, looking to get the different components to talk to. Coming from the fire department, I know the benefit to have what is being presented to the incident commander from the information in the assessor's office that could be relayed to the fire scene. It has the potential of saving lives. And it can communicate that the firefighters, before even leaving the station, have a fairly well idea that will come up in the MDT in the truck, the motor data terminal. They'll have an idea what type of structure fire that they're actually going to. So I see with your looking at that, that's going to be huge. And so I think this is the beginning, so to speak. And I'm willing to, let's lay back and see how it goes. And again, if you can come back with a little report to tell us how it's going, I think that that's what the taxpayers see. I think they've got to recognize that we saw an issue, we corrected it, and we're working to get it better. So thank you.
Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you so much for this. It's clear now what needs to be done. I know that after the reassessment, I heard a lot from constituents about what was wrong. And it was pretty clear that something needed to be done. We've heard it here from people who came up to ask for help. And I think that's exactly what you're offering. It's not the assessors that are the problem. What the problem is that there was no organization. There was no process. Everything was waiting for you, I think. And I'm so glad this is happening. Thank you very much.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to just emphasize one point, in particular, a policy that I agree with. Ms. Kleiner, you mentioned that you put in place the written request form for whatever it may be, and that you'll get back to the member. I'm talking like I'm in the credit union. You'll get back to the citizen in 5 business days, and I got to tell you, that follows the right to know law, and there was a reason that the right to know law was written the way that it was, because Nashua is very lucky that we have a large staff, generally speaking, in various departments when you consider, just different divisions. When you look at like a small little town, though, let's say, I don't know, pick one. They're not going to have an assessing department with 5 or 6 people working in it. They're going to have maybe one person. And so the right to know law was written because in a way that allows the community to best tailor their ways that they can respond to individuals' requests and gives them a right, um, gives them a time frame to be able to do that. I think that utilizing that law to the degree that it gives you the latitude to be able to answer everybody's question in a appropriate manner, in a way that is going to get the information across to them, so that they understand what is being presented to them, I think is not only a good practice, but it's a best practice. And so that is a policy, as far as I'm concerned, that I will 100% support, and might even be good to implement in other departments where there may be, um, where they might have that lack of being able to fulfill some of these requests that come in. Because to me, in my profession, nothing is better than getting something in writing, because you can respond exactly to what the request is. Everybody's on the same page, if you will, you know, and that to me is a great way to move forward. And so, thank you for doing that. And I think it acknowledges the balance between the staff and what the demands are there, and the public and their right to know.
Alderman Clee.
Yeah, there was one item that I did forget to ask, and it was kind of mentioned. You've done tremendous work in 14 and 38 days, so thank you for that. And then coming in, giving us this information and so on. Can we expect, I'm looking at your timeline here, maybe sometime like in August that we could get, I mean, that, at that point, you said you're doing a lull and you're going to be starting that new project. Can we get kind of an update as to how things went with the billing and the abatements, and is that too much to ask? Or, and I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat right at the moment, but I think it would just, I think the public would appreciate that.
Director Kleiner?
So I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I would imagine that after our July conversation, there'll be some conversation with the board and around a bonding request and some need for some additional information to the board right around that time. So I will certainly discuss that with the mayor, but I would see that as foreseeable.
Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here this evening. Appreciate your presentation, your time, and your hard work. Have a good night. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned at 8:22.